Well, they made an understandable choice. When you look at this decision-making process, you really have to factor in how big an impact you think that guy can have. And New England's in a unique situation. They're at the bottom of the league in terms of cap space. They're 30th right now. I think Kansas City and Atlanta are the only teams that are lower than him. And the $3 million that Andy Dalton got from Dallas guaranteed is $1 million more than they're paying both Brian Hoyer and Stidham. So you're talking about that financial component. And if you feel like he's not going to be that big an upgrade from Brian Hoyer in terms of a veteran presence, there's no reason to go make that move. And I can understand why they feel strongly about Hoyer. He's been there for 5 years, between his couple stints that he's had. And he provides an element of leadership and mentorship for Stidham. So they're all in with the two guys that they have. It's costing them a total of $2 million. They're in a financial situation that they're not usually in. And the situation with a veteran quarterback, it's got to make sense. And they obviously felt this one didn't make sense.
Well, I feel great about it, Coach, to be honest with you. When Nick texted us this news, my first thought, he framed it as a Dak thing, and I framed it as thank goodness he's not on the Patriots. And this is just more proof that we should all get on the Stidham train, because that's where Belichick is, that's where I am, and we could have had tons of quarterbacks, and we've decided to go with Stidham. Could have re-signed Brady. Nope. Could have drafted Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts. Nope, we traded out. Could have drafted Jameis for $1 million. We can't draft him. We could have signed him for $1 million. Or we could have gotten Andy Dalton with some maneuvering. But this is just another vote of confidence for Stidham. Nick, if you'd like to join the Stidham train, come on aboard. We've got plenty of seats. They're very nice. It's a nice Acela. It goes from my house straight to Foxborough. The train tracks move a little bit.
Listen, I'd love to join the Stidham train if I could believe it. Listen, I know Jarrett Stidham's father-in-law quite well, and I don't think he's been very happy with some of my commentary about his beloved son-in-law. It would be a great story, but I am too much of a prisoner to the information that we have available to us. And listen, they are clearly sticking with Stidham, at least for the time being. There's a Cam component here that still makes me anxious, and maybe we can get into that later. But the evidence we have with Stidham, we have no evidence about him in the pros. He's thrown 4 passes. I don't care that one of them was a pick 6. It's too small of a sample size. So what we do, though, have is evidence of the quarterbacks drafted around him. So if you look at the last year's NFL draft and you look at the 2 quarterbacks taken before Stidham, the quarterback taken right after Stidham, what have they done? Well, there's Will Grier. He was in Carolina. They started the season with Cam, then they went to Kyle Allen, then Kyle Allen turned back into Kyle Allen. They're like, I guess we'll give Will Grier a try. He threw 3 picks in his first game, threw a pick 6 in his second game, and then he's done, and he's been passed over. Then there was Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley bathed himself in so much glory for the Bengals last year that they took Joe Burrow #1 overall. Then right after Stidham, there's Easton Stick. Easton Stick with his second mention on the show today. Who'd have thought that? The Chargers loved him so much, they took Justin Herbert in this year's draft. So the 3 quarterbacks drafted in closest proximity to Jarrett Stidham, after a year with their teams, all of their teams said, no, not a starter, can't happen. Sign Teddy Bridgewater, draft Joe Burrow, draft Justin Herbert. Stidham, who is the one of those 3 of those 4 who didn't actually play, is the one we are assigning faith to. And, Coach, this is the question I would have for you. Do you think Jarrett Stidham's stock is actually enhanced by the fact that he didn't play last year? Because those other mid-round quarterbacks that had to play, their team saw him and they said, okay, we can't go into the season with this guy. Do you think it helped him that he essentially had a redshirt year?
Well, first of all, let's go on the argument that the quarterbacks drafted around him weren't successful, so therefore he's not successful. That would imply that this is an exact science, and we know that evaluating quarterbacks is not an exact science. Developing quarterbacks is not an exact science. How else does Tom Brady get drafted in the 6th round and become the greatest quarterback of all time? So that's flawed. In terms of him sitting and not playing, there's real value to that. And every year you see young guys get drafted, and every year organizations say, we want to give him some time to develop. and sit and learn, but then they rush him in. The guy's not ready. He gets scarred or has setbacks, and he's not the guy that they hope he can become. Tom Brady, his first year, was not good at all. I was there. Okay, he had great characteristics. He had great traits. He developed those traits, but you wouldn't look at him and say, okay, this is a starting quarterback in the NFL, and put him on anywhere near the trajectory that he took. So there is value in being able to sit behind Tom Brady for a year and learn. And now you go into this situation, and look, it's a no-win situation for any quarterback that takes over. Who wants to take over for Tom Brady? You're never going to compare to what he's done. So having the year, I do think, helps him. Evaluating him based on what other guys did who were drafted around him, I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Nick, I got a question for you. What do you think then did happen with the Patriots? Do you think they got caught off guard? They were playing musical chairs, and all of a sudden there were no quarterbacks left for them? I mean, they could have drafted one. It was a heavy quarterback draft class. But if they're not all in on Stidham, what do you think actually happened there?
Well, there's two viable options, one of which terrifies me. The first option is they do really like Stidham. That Belichick says last year, if we scored 15 points in every single game, we'd have gone 11-5. We're a defense, special teams, offensive line, running, coach-oriented team, and we don't want to spend money on the quarterback, and we think Stidham can develop. That's door number one. Door number two is they're laying in the weeds for Cam. And Wildes, that door seems to be opening further and further and further, and as someone who is, for my entire adult life, I've rooted against the Patriots, it makes me very anxious. You claim to be a Stidham guy. You will leave him like a high school girlfriend for Cam Newton the moment that news story comes out, if it comes out. That's the one, Wildes, that makes me most nervous, that Cam is still unsigned and the Patriots still have this seeming opening, Kevin.
Well, as you know, Nick, a few weeks ago I was a Cam guy, but it was too emotionally rocky for me, and the uncertainty just forced me into Stidham's arms. So I'm still a Stidham guy. I'm not entertaining any Cam talk at this time. If you want to talk about a pre-show meeting or post-show meeting, that is totally acceptable. But during the show, I think that you should just throw Stidham questions to me. What Stidham's ceiling? There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Coach, I've got a question for you. Last week, you talked about the Patriots taking a global approach this season where it's more special teams, defense, Can you just describe the global approach that Belichick might take to this season with Stidham as a quarterback?
Well, it's not unique to this season, Kevin. It's how they approach everything. And that's what makes New England different than a lot of teams is the head coach is the head coach of the whole team. And there is an emphasis on defense and special teams as well as quarterback play and offensive line play. And when you look at how they drafted, get a couple linebackers or edge rushers, however you want to put them, 3-4, 4-3. You get a couple of tight ends. You get a couple of O-linemen. You get some safeties. They're building not only they're infusing young talent in a lot of sort of foundation type positions, which they typically do. This is a situation that in a transition from an iconic person and a legend, it's going to be hard for whoever plays that role. So by having this young quarterback assume that and not putting the pressure on him to win every single game, but to go out and do what he needs to do to allow the whole team to collectively win the game, I think is the right approach.
Coach, I'll let you have the last word on this. I just want to hear your thoughts on this part very quickly, because while I was talking about Cam, I saw the look of a disgusted parent on your face, like you were disappointed in me. Like you had just like this idiot. This guy's talking about Cam again. All right, tell me why you don't think the Cam thing it'll make me feel better, why it's a viable option at all.
It just doesn't fit. And New England is looking for a starter, not a star. Okay, they're not trying to go get the guy who wants to be the face of the franchise, who wants to have all of the attention. They want someone who's going to come in and play a role and do the things that they need to do for the collective good of the team, as opposed to their brand or their next contract or their expectations. And I'm not begrudging Cam Newton any of those things. He should look for the best opportunity that he can find. But the fit in New England just doesn't make sense based off of where he is. Typically, his approach and New England's approach, it's just not a good fit at all.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.